I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everybody, it's Lauren Kling, and welcome to another episode of the World on Fire After Show here on AfterBuzz TV. I am not doing this alone. I'm here with Tori Weaver. How are you?
Yes, I'm good. I'm always looking forward to our Mondays at 2 p.m. so we can get into this show.
You know what? Isn't this like afternoon tea time?
It really is. It's like I'm just like catching up with my friend about my favorite show. Like that's what this feels like.
It does. Although I wish we were poolside. I think that might make it a little bit better.
Honestly, especially since it's so hot outside.
I know. So, wherever you guys are, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you watching with us. All right. So, Tori, what do you think overall of this episode, episode 4?
Like I said, I feel like every episode that we come back and talk about has gotten crazier than the last, and they always pack so much into this hour. I feel like I say that every time, but they really do. And sometimes I have to find myself like trying to recall what happened in the last episode because it moves so fast. But I mean, I think one big theme of this was that the war is getting even crazier, and this baby that Lois is having, I think everyone's trying to figure out like what is the best thing to do in terms of when the baby gets here, how they're going to handle it. People are leaving the army, people are joining, and it's just like what in the world is going on? But it's always so interesting to see all these dynamics play out now that we're introduced to all these different characters. I think they did a good job at like laying out the framework in the first episode, and now we're able to see like how all these pieces connect in all these episodes moving forward. So it's always every time we flash to a new person, I'm like, yes, let's check in. Like, what's going on? Are you okay? Where are you at?
Yes. Are you okay? Where are you at? That's the totally perfect hashtag for this show. So speaking of Lois, she returns from abroad. She was singing with for the troops. She's come back to England and she's got something going on, and it's her father that
Mhm.
guesses that she's pregnant before she can tell him. Were you surprised with that, or
Not at all. Honestly, I was more surprised that Harry's mom didn't catch on to it when Lewis first went over there to see her. I was very surprised that she didn't kind of bring it up because I know that like when a woman is pregnant, anyone who has been around a woman that's pregnant is like there's certain things that you can look out for, and so you kind of know when a woman is expecting. So I was kind of surprised that as a woman and as a mother that she didn't really pick up on that. But I also think that it kind of shows more about her character because maybe she didn't even pay attention enough to Lois's mannerisms or even pay her any mind to really pick up on those things. And so I kind of wasn't as surprised because that's her character. She doesn't really pay attention to the things that she doesn't find important, and I think that's why she didn't pick up on it. But it was
yeah?
heartwarming to know that her dad already knew, and they didn't have to have like this awkward conversation.
Yeah. It's interesting. Douglas visits Robina and tells her that Lois is pregnant with Harry's child. And so I feel like whenever you introduce a baby and nobody knows not everybody is on the same page as far as whose child it is, there's always, it's always like a soap opera
Yeah.
is really like it is. But that's what, that's what Downton Abbey was, and all those other kind of shows. So, let's talk about Douglas. Douglas is
Mhm.
at home. He's missing his 2 kids in the last episode, just completely distraught because he's a peaceful guy. He's been through a war before. Um, so now he's home. He gets a visit from Robina and Jan.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of hard. You feel for him as a father. You want him to just be at peace, but it's kind of hard, don't you think?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think in any situation that he's in this series, he's never really fully at peace because, like you said, in the last episode, he was missing his children terribly, and in this episode, when they come back, they bring him even more stress than they did when they were abroad, and it's just kind of like your heart just breaks because you want him to be happy. Like, and I think it kind of shows that a parent is really never done worrying about their kids, no matter where they
Right.
are, whether they're underneath your roof or abroad or fighting in the war. You're always going to worry about their well-being, but geez, I was like, this dad can never catch a break.
Yeah, I know. I know. And we know him from Game of Thrones, so it's bad. You feel bad for him. You want him to win this time. So let's talk about his other kids. Tom's return from the war brings some momentary relief, but then he confesses that he wants to desert the Navy. And it's kind of like we saw signs of him in a way really feeling, having emotions on the last previous episode, when he kind of felt guilty for not shaking the guy's hand, the one that
Hmm.
ended up dying. But now but he's still Tom. He hasn't
Yeah.
isn't a completely changed guy. So him wanting to desert the Navy's killing has got to be killing his father.
Yeah, I think it was really complex conversation to kind of witness because you do understand where both of them are coming from. I mean, we are no strangers to how the army works and things like that. So it's just kind of like you, after seeing what he had been through, you understand why he wouldn't want to go back. However, when you make a commitment to something like the army, you can't really just, wake up one day and say, you know what, this isn't for me. Like you can't just, it's not nap time that you decided to skip that day. It's not really like that. And so, especially in these times, or honestly anywhere, when you are a part of something like this, there's a certain level of honor that comes with that, and like global responsibility that's now placed on your shoulders. And like I said, it's not something to just be taken lightly and say, oh
Yeah.
well, yeah, I'll just come home. It's no big deal as long as my dad understands and everything is fine. But it's like, no, everyone knows that you were there. This big, establishment is not going to just like let it go, which means they're never going to let our family forget it. And I think, like you said, it just you understand both sides. You understand both sides.
Right, right. So from England, let's move on to Poland, where Gregor and Conrad are still fugitives sleeping in the forest. Um, it's scary because that group that Kasia was in is kind of, a lot of them got killed off, and the SS troops are completely surrounded. And so there's them. Kaja, who last episode we saw her kind of save that German SS uh, officer, not officer, but member. I can speak
Mhm.
well. But this time she decided, forget it. And so
Yeah.
she lures that SS officer. That's what I was trying to say. She lures the SS officer, and while waiting for her friends to come and take him out, they don't. And so she pulls out a gun and shoots him. Um, it's still surprising. It's still a shock, but we realize Kaja, this is all she has, is her family and her country.
Yeah. Yeah. It was kind of a thought that was already in the back of my head when we saw that she joined the resistance, honestly, because at first I didn't really know what she was going to do. And then last episode, we kind of, understood what her role or job was in the resistance. And it concerns me. And in this episode, it really like showed why it concerned me. I mean, you're luring these officers or members or whatever into like this dark back alley where no one can see you. And it's this sort of like, romantic type of thing. And I was always concerned that something was going to happen to her that she didn't want to happen. Because I mean, this is like a two-person operation from what we've seen so far. Like it's only
Right.
her and this other guy. So she's supposed to do that, and then he's supposed to come take him out. And even though it wasn't his plan to be late and not get there in time. Things can happen when you're doing things that nobody is supposed to know about. And so every time that they did it last episode, I was just kind of like, I don't know, like something about this just does not feel like it's going to go right. Like you cannot do this every time, and it's not going to go perfectly every time just by, simple law. And this episode, I almost like turned away from the screen because I was like, something is going to happen to her. And I understand that
Yeah.
you have these feelings tied up into what's going on, but I don't know. I don't know when is the time to put like your personal safety above that. And I don't know. And I think those are two heavy scales that she's weighing.
I think in some way, all of us always have those choices that we can make and that we
Hmm.
have to make under duress. Even now, with where we are with quarantine, we're having to make choices as far as when we go out. Now, I'm not comparing the severity of us and Kaja, but still, this is something where we have to decide what we want to do and when we want to just, fight or flight kind of
Hmm.
thing, or freeze. So I
Yeah, for
totally
sure.
get it. We're seeing more with Webster, handsome Dr. Webster, and handsome Albert, the jazz musician. Webster's beginning to see the effects of violence in Paris.
Hmm.
Um, when he's treating the couple who were attacked in the street and finds out that they're Jewish, of course, as a Jew and having family members, it's it's cringeworthy. It's scary because this actually happened. This really happened. And although, we're watching it on TV dramatized, it kind of brings the feelings up of this. This is what happened. What do you think about Albert? Because Albert is also a target for being
Mhm.
gay, for being black. So there's nobody is safe really anywhere.
Yeah, for sure. And I think even though the couple didn't really have like they never really had like this immense camera time in this hour-long episode, this conversation was extremely powerful. And like you said, like this brings up emotions that both of us on this panel can deeply relate to. And I know that sometimes seeing it, even if it is dramatized on the show, it can be a little triggering or bring up feelings that you have. And this conversation just was nothing short of that. I mean, he basically said, I'm not safe no matter where I go. And
Yeah.
that's something that, I know as being an African American myself, like that's something that we talk about all the time. I mean, my friend and I, we were reading just like a general icebreaker question, and it was like, what time would you travel back in, like in the world, if you could just got to pick? And I was like, honestly, I don't think there's any time that I would pick because I'm black. So I was never safe anywhere. Anytime that period that you drop me off in, I probably would be in the same situation. You know what I mean? Like I would always feel like my life was in danger, and I can only imagine how that feels for other people, especially watching it played on the screen. But it was something that I think was very important to talk about because in this series, I mean, we kind of see like them against us. Like we just see these
Hmm.
polar opposites with a lot of our characters, and I think these two characters bring in the people who aren't really talked about. Like the people who are trying to figure it out, the people who aren't safe anywhere, the people who are trying to exist but constantly feel like their life is in danger, whether the world is at war or not. And I just love the softness that it brings and the attention that it brings to those people in this series.
Yeah, it really touched me when you said the softness because I'm
Mhm.
thinking about through so many of the after shows that you and I have both done. I know for myself, being able to see these stories told of two men or an interracial couple, to be able to see these stories of life that many of us in bigger cities experience without a second thought are
Mhm.
still new and still different and scary to a lot of people in parts of not just the country, of the world. And it's sometimes, as a white guy, I want to shout out something. I don't know what it is, but I know that I can just have support and love in me and
Mhm.
talk about these shows. So I do hope the best for Webster and Albert.
Same,
um um
because it's already hard enough.
it is. And then let's go to Nancy. Oh, Aunt Nancy.
Honestly, she's really like Aunt Nancy. Like that's really what she is in this entire series. Like that's the perfect name for her because that's what she acts like.
Yeah. So she wants to submit her script to Schmidt, her minder, about the euthanasia story, and he's like, no. Um, and so between that and Nancy's neighbor, who decides he's got to join the Nazi party in order to protect his daughter, again is scary. Is
Yeah.
really freaking scary and sad, and it feels like we, in some way, I can relate this to what's going on now when we feel like the people in charge are not working for us, they're working for others. And what can we do?
Yeah, this dynamic, like her and her neighbors, they stress me out on this show because it's just so hard. Like I always sometimes I want to yell at the TV because I understand that, like I said in the last episode, like I understand her need and like will and passion to get the truth out. Like we all understand that. But girl, okay, we
Yeah.
are dealing with a lot of other lives. And I think it's like when it's only affecting you, you can make whatever decision you want. Like nobody can
Mhm.
tell you how to decide things based on your own life. When it is a fine line is when it affects other people. And I think that her neighbors have tried to tell her multiple times that you might not see it as a big deal, but even you talking to us or waving hello when you walk by to go to your apartment, anytime that you are having interactions with people, all of those people are in danger. They're looking into all of those people, especially when you are trying to broadcast these like humanitarian think pieces that are just not working right now. And so
Right.
it's a little frustrating because we all know that her neighbor, the little girl, is a big target. You know, she looked into the story. We know that things won't really play out for her too well if they start investigating. And so it's a little I don't know, it's frustrating because you don't want her to not speak the truth, but you also don't want her to put other people in danger who are already at risk of being in danger. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, Nancy, what are you gonna do?
Oh, Aunt Nancy. I'm excited to talk about Nancy in a little bit for our news, but before we get to the news, let's go to our special segment.
Yes, I love talking about these unsung heroes because I feel like one day I'll be an unsung hero, not in a war, but doing something. So our next unsung hero is Evan Pavlovich. Pavlovich. I'm always butchering these names, but he was a Red Army cook in World War II, and he actually single-handedly disarmed a German tank. And let me tell you how. So at first, he was, like I said, he was just a Red Army cook. So he's in the kitchen, he's simply cooking, he's actually by himself. And he sees these two German tanks coming that way. The kitchen is like, off in its own field. He sees them coming their way. One keeps on track and one kind of detours and gets closer to the kitchen. And all he has is a rifle and an axe, and he used it to his advantage. So as soon as he saw the people from the tank came out of the tank and started walking towards the kitchen, he charges towards them with the axe and the rifle in his hand, just full of fury, ready to attack. They come back, they go back inside the tank, try to fire, but he's already out of the fire not
The
pit,
range.
but like,
Yeah.
yes, fire range. And he's able to actually get on top of the tank and break the barrel machine gun, and is hitting the exterior of the tank with his axe, and is actually yelling out imaginary, like, commands to this imaginary army to make them think
Wow.
that they are going to throw grenades at the tank. So when he's yelling out these things, the people in the tank actually surrender, and he makes them come out of the tank one by one at gunpoint and tie each other up. Now, of course, like, nobody's there because he's yelling to this imaginary army. But when they do get there, he returns. He's just like, he has them all tied up and he returns to cooking. And everybody just comes back and he's just cooking up this porridge as if nothing happened. But his story and his victory was actually used in a lot of World War II propaganda, and his story is unsung to us. But among the people who were there, he was a hero because he just kind of picked up what he had, and it was not, a decorated officer by any means, wasn't in the ranks to give this command or do this alone, but he was able to do it. And so it's just a nice, like, underdog unsung hero story.
Wow. Thank you, Tori.
No problem.
Those are cool. All right. I see a new series in your future where you're hosting these kind of.
I think so too. Like, a lot of the after shows that I do, I'm always giving like some random history lesson. And
Yeah.
so stay tuned for like a history segment with Tori, like his story.
Yes. Yes, that is it. Okay. All right, we're working on it, Tori. All right. So for a new segment, I'm going to go to an article that was in Town and Country magazine, townandcountrymag.com. Costume designer takes us behind the scenes of the period drama. Nick Ede, EDE, was the costume designer, and he said it was important that each of the locales had its own aesthetic and its own color. He says on a very basic level, Warsaw is gray, Berlin is brown, Paris is multicolored, and Manchester is what he says very British, pieces that are much shop bought. And it always fascinates me, and I don't never think about it, but when we watch a TV show or movie, oftentimes the costuming and the color in the costumes is purposeful. The music, when a character arrives, sometimes the character has a theme, and maybe it's foreign to me because as a guy, I sometimes don't look down to see what colors or objects I am putting on my body. And that might be a guy thing, Tori. I know you're Tori, would you like to comment on the fact that some guys sometimes don't know how they're dressing themselves?
I mean, it goes without saying, we can tell.
On behalf of me and me alone, I apologize to my wife, and I will endeavor to color coordinate better, but I'm getting better at that. So, but it's fascinating to read something like this and then watch the show and see like, oh yeah, look at all the grays, look at how the clothing and the colors and everything match. So Lois wears dresses where Kaja wears separates.
Mhm.
Um, what I didn't realize, as the program goes on, Kaja wears more and more different pieces on top of each other because she keeps losing her clothes while she's on the run. That's
Mm.
fascinating. Nancy's look is based on a few female reporters who were there during the time, and all absolutely based on Katharine Hepburn. So that's why when you said Aunt Nancy, I kind of smiled because I'm like, yes, Katharine Hepburn, a very such a very strong-willed, forceful woman in the roles that she chose. So I totally
Mhm.
saw that. Robina, middle class, self made, and her husband was self made. So reasonably elegant, but in no way ultra fashionable. And I can see that. She's definitely not aristocracy. And then also extras, there were well over 2,000 costumes on the show. Now we know from Game of Thrones how many people they have in a shot. And when you have extras, when you have a large war scene or a lot of soldiers going, they all have to be costumed. And so I definitely recommend you go read this article. It's very eye-opening.
Oh
Um,
yes.
so so with that being said, any predictions for future episodes?
I feel like all my predictions are always just wrong. Um, but I mean, this you never like from the start of the episode to the end of the episode, your predictions like completely change, and so I never know what's going to go on. Honestly, I do think that his name is escaping me, but Lewis's brother, I think is going to return, and I think he's
Tom.
going to find some sort of like reason to stay. Like I think something's going to happen to make him feel proud of his decision because we know that like his decisions aren't really like based on deep thinking. They just kind of like go with the flow type of thing. And I think that this decision is going to like give him a reason to want to ponder and think on the next like life decisions that he makes. Now I know that's like broad because that could be anything, but I'm trying to keep him, loose because like I said, all my predictions are wrong. And I think that I think Harry is going to, I don't know, I feel like Harry's little love triangle is going to overlap soon. Like this just can't keep happening like this. Everybody is not just
Mhm.
going to keep being in separate places. So I think maybe something in the war is going to cause like Harry to come back, maybe an injury or something like that, and he's going to have to come back. And maybe Kaja will kind of be a little bit more threatened. Like maybe she'll have to actually flee and go to where Harry is. I mean, we know that they still care about each other. And I think they're all going to end up in the same place, or at least that's what I want to happen.
Yeah, it's funny. You said exactly what I was thinking. Tom's going to go back for some reason. You said it perfectly. And Harry has got to face this love triangle. Right now, the child is the third since Kaja is in Poland. So I predict that Harry and Kaja will meet up. I just can't figure out if Harry's going to meet her in Poland or if she's going to escape and meet
Yeah,
him in England or somewhere else. So
yeah.
we've got what, 4 more episodes, I think, right? Is this an 8
Hmm.
episode series?
I think so. And
At
hopefully he's
least
a
for
little bit more upfront with the information because he loves to hold important details out of the
yeah,
conversation.
yeah. It's like watching The Bachelor. Just come on, just all right. Before we go, I want to thank everyone for watching Tori and I on this show and watching all of the AfterBuzz after shows. We are the ESPN of TV talk, and you are the reason we do this because we want to be able to share our love of these shows. If you guys are watching on our YouTube channel, go ahead and click subscribe so you can find out when more of our shows are going to air live. Also, leave your comments down below so we can answer those. If you're listening to an audio only version, we have a podcast version that you can listen on your favorite podcast player. Leave us 5-star reviews on iTunes. Let us know you love us, and then we will love you back. With that being said, Tori, where can people find you on the internet?
You guys can find me on Instagram at Toxic Model or on Twitter at Tori with two E's. And I'm on a couple of other after shows. So if you're interested in anything on TV, just try to find me. And I'm sure I'm talking about it.
Perfect. Tori, what are these after shows? I want to know.
Okay, so we have Motherland, Fort Salem, and we've had some amazing guests from the show on our after show. So definitely check out those interviews. A Letter for the King on Netflix, Sunderland Till I Die on Netflix as well. Too Hot to Handle, which was a big hit, and there was so much to talk about on that one. I'm covering Penny Dreadful later today, and some other after shows that are escaping my mind now.
That's okay. Wow, though, Spitzy, even just giving some names, I'm like, wait, have I seen those shows? Why not? Uh, so thank you. And you can find me on this show and also What We Do in the Shadows on Thursdays at 6 o'clock. That's an FXX show. All right, for Tori and myself, thank you for watching. Goodbye, everybody.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.